Okay, we're live.
Okay. So I'm Mark A. Bell, the chair of the Grants and Data Committee for the Athens in Motion Commission. This is our monthly meeting, and I'd like to call it to order. In attendance today are Teresa Friedlander and James Barlaman from the Athens in Motion Commission, Peter Norris, a guest, and Daniel Sizemore from ACC staff. First on the agenda is Peter, and we want to be respectful of your time. You're welcome to stay through the entire meeting, but if you want to drop off after you've done your presentation, that's fine as well. So you were going to talk a little bit about a People for Bikes grant proposal. So
Thank you, Mark, and I apologize. I don't have any written thing for the meeting, but I had approached the Prince Avenue Corridor Citizens Advisory Committee chairs Diane and
Diana Jackson and
about writing a grant for Prince Avenue to purchase perhaps the temporary equipment needed for the trial of bike lanes that have been proposed. The agency I was intending to go to is called People for Bikes, formerly the American Wheelman, a long-standing bicycle advocacy organization, national organization. They offer up to $10,000 a year for organizations, either nonprofit or governmental, to support their efforts to provide safe cycling corridors and facilities across the nation. I looked through their grant guidelines. The Prince Avenue corridor projects most definitely meet with those guidelines, and in fact, they have funded similar proposals in the past. And even, I believe, Mark, at our last Prince Avenue meeting, you provided a link to some facilities that another city had developed to test or to trial their bike lanes, and that was in part funded by People for Bikes.
Oh.
The sort of negative news I have for you is that they are not currently accepting grants. They do not publish what the grant cycle is. And from what I recall in previous examination of the organization, it's about twice a year. So that doesn't preclude us from submitting a grant proposal. Their process is you send a letter of interest to to People for Bikes, and if their interest is sufficiently piqued by that letter, they will invite you to submit a grant application. There's a database called Foundation Directly Online that I used to have access to via the university. That has been discontinued. I'm told it is available at ACC Library, but apparently you have to go there in person, so I intend to do that this week and find out some more details, specifically when their grant cycle generally is. But that aside, I still think it's appropriate for either ACC or perhaps Athens in Motion, if they want to collaborate with ACC to submit a grant for bicycle infrastructure. And my idea is for the temporary structures that are necessary to trial the bike lane on Prince Avenue. And Daniel, you can give me more information if we have those kind of things in the house. It didn't seem to be when there was discussion last Wednesday for the Prince Avenue User Group that ACC does have those things in house, and if not, I think that will be a perfect um, application for those funds. And if we do, we could find other things, anything to do with developing, putting a protected bike lanes on Prince Avenue would be eligible for funding. $10,000 isn't all that much, really. Of course, it'll stretch the taxpayers' dollars a little bit. My personal motive, to be honest with you, is I want to get a little bit more experience in grant writing. I've had some success in the past. We were talking before the meeting started. I wrote T-SPLOST 2023 proposals for Prince Avenue and Jefferson Road. Those were ultimately combined into the single Prince Avenue Jefferson Road proposal and the commission defined option. I did a SPLOST proposal for water trails on behalf of Upper Corning Watershed Network, and that was accepted by the SPLOST committee at the time and eventually approved by voters. And if need be, I'm happy to send my resume to the AIM committee or whoever else is interested for to write this grant. So that's what I'm here to propose, is that a grant be written, that I write a grant proposal, and then if AIM wants to be the co-sponsor of that, that'd be great. Otherwise, I could write it on behalf of ACC. I guess that depends on perhaps Daniel and Manager Williams on how we would proceed with those legalities, if you will.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Daniel, as as Athens in Motion, is it able to receive funds, or would they have to come to ACC?
With this particular grant, so I'm gonna share. I just pulled up the website. Um,
Yeah, you got it. I have it up too. So
yeah, I believe with this particular grant, so tell me if you see grant guidelines.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Um, so under who can apply, um, maybe there we go. It says nonprofits and from city or county agencies, and from state working locally or federal. So it would need to come from the city because Athens in Motion is not a nonprofit.
right.
But yeah, this would just be a similar, if there's a grant moving forward, we would probably, because it's for Prince Avenue, we could run it through the Athens in Motion Commission, or we could run it through the corridor committee. I'm okay with either one. Ultimately, we would, if we do it through the department, kind of along the lines of the corridor, we're all working on the same thing. So I think that would work. It would just basically be we'd put it on the agenda for mayor and commission, let them know that we're applying for it.
Mhm.
Something else that I noticed on here is I think it pairs really nicely with what Peter was saying. Um, there's something in here. It says accepts requests for funding up to $10,000. They don't require a specific percentage match,
Right.
but
Yes.
they
As well.
won't consider more than 50% match. So basically, we could say to fund this portion, we could do these things. Now, one thing with this on Prince Avenue, um, we do have funding there through T-SPLOST, and the really great thing about these types of temporary barriers for these, experiments basically, is that they can be moved and used at different sites.
Is it okay if
So,
I share? I pulled up this the
oh
site.
yeah,
So let me just show, just so other folks can see.
absolutely.
If you'll stop sharing, yeah, let me pull it up. I just want to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about here. Okay,
Yes.
can you see them?
Mhm.
So they're just really slick. They look like almost a permanent installation, but they're temporary. And they have drainage for, water. Here's another one. You can insert signs on them. And I assume everyone can see this.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I think, yeah, here's another example.
So would we be buying these things with that grant money or just renting them, or how does that work?
I
It would be
propose that
buying.
the grant money used to partially fund the purchase of those temporary barriers to be owned by Athens-Clarke County Transportation and Public Works.
So we can
Would
use them
the-
in another application down the road.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Do you know how much they cost? How much would $20,000 buy?
I don't know yet.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's still to be determined.
My sense of the transportation infrastructure is it'll probably buy two of them.
Yeah, it's probably not going to fund the entire.
No,
We have about a mile and a half or so that we want to trial on Prince Avenue. I don't know how far that'll go, but every little bit helps. And,
Yeah.
we can establish that we are getting funding from outside agencies to, address, and that goes a little bit, helps our public image, if you will, that we're not just relying on taxpayer dollars, but we're leveraging those taxpayer dollars to get additional funds that are available to us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, obviously it'll be important how much it will purchase and how long a stretch it'll purchase. It sounds like they want to be the primary funder of whatever is purchased. So I wonder if, the overall cost of these barriers is $100,000, if they're gonna think, well, we're just an afterthought here. So I guess I would encourage you to think about, I think it's a great idea, and I hope that it'll buy a mile's worth of these, barriers, but I have a sense it probably won't. So you may want to think about an alternative if it's only buying, 10 of them. Let's say they cost $1,000 a piece, and we buy 20 of them, that'll go 100 feet. The funding agency may, not want to be such a small piece of a very large purchase. I don't know what others think about that. Or Peter, most importantly, what you think about that.
I I think part of it will be a letter of the response from the letter of interest. I can have some unofficial dialogue. I think if with people for bikes, I'd found contact for them. Another option though might be to assist with some of to offset some of the costs of design work that we are encountering with our vendors that are assisting Athens-Clarke County.
Is that something they list as one of the things they'll fund?
They do.
Okay. Okay, good.
There are some other options as well. We have some something called, let me find it. I was just there. Zikla Zipper Zero Cycle Lane. They call them roundabouts, but they're I'll share my screen again. Um, These have been mentioned a few times to us by the Athens or not Athens Motion tool design group. So there are these modular pieces that can be there's different colors and they can be used in different ways. There's curved and there's also straight, and these kind of clip together. And so I could find out what like 1,000 of these would cost. I wish companies would just have kind of their costs on there, but I get it.
What's it
But
called?
this is something that we've talked about
Oh,
as well.
And this is a temporary thing because it looks like something someone could steal if they really wanted to.
Yes, it's temporary, but pretty sure it gets mounted to the asphalt with spikes.
Okay.
There's holes in the top, so it clips together, and there are some other spots. There was in our road safety audits, our fatality response team, we're identifying some of the areas where, last year there was a fatality on East Broad Street. So something that we did discuss is potentially to lower the speeds of cars kind of coming up along East Broad. Um, let's see if I can get aerial turned on. One like a concept that we came up with was we have existing bike lanes here, but for this crossing, we are moving the crossing to this side and adding in RRFBs, but we could also do protected bike lanes in this area as well, which
Can
would
you back up
narrow.
just a second, Daniel? I'm just still trying to get oriented. Where are we looking at here? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
It's broad. Okay, I think
So
I know
this
where
is
you're
5
talking.
points downtown.
Oh, that 5
East.
points downtown. Gotcha. Okay, yeah. And the Firefly, I can see the corner of the Firefly there. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
so there's the Firefly where it comes in. Hickory
Right.
Street with the multimodal station.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically that the crash that happened last year with the um, student was crossing. See where it kind of there's that rail. There's a
Yeah,
raised area.
yeah.
So the student was crossing at the crosswalk right there, and the driver kind of was speeding really fast. And so if we did do protected lanes along here, that could be an experiment to see if we could look at speeds and see the difference between speeds with protected lanes and reflective signage to make the field of view more narrow. Not a narrow field of view, but the perception that you have a reduced amount of space to drive usually slows cars down. And
Yeah, I
this is
rode up
one that
that
we could
hill.
actually put
I
in
rode up that
now.
hill yesterday, actually, so I know it.
Oof.
Brutal.
Do you think this would be a good site for protected lanes?
Well, certainly going uphill. It would be. I mean, I've talked in the past, it would be a great place to put one of those, bike,
Elevators.
what are they called? Escalators.
Yeah, escalators. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not holding my breath for that though. So.
Will they cover that in this grant?
Well, seriously, I mean, I do think that it is unfortunate where the Firefly ends there. It just sort of
Yeah.
ends,
Yeah.
and there's no connection to downtown. There's no signage. There's no, I mean, people kind of know, but anyway, I always thought it was unfortunate because not many people are willing to ride up that hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
are, I believe, part of the Mark redevelopment that's going on here, they are paving bike access on that side road so that there's a curb cut because there were some really expensive modifications if we were to do curb cuts here. So
Because of
this
the
is going to
drainage,
be
I can
like,
see that. Yeah.
yeah, this is the primary entrance for bikes. So we could make that more obvious though, I think, with some street marking. So, that's part of this whole idea of like, as we mess around with some temporary stuff, maybe experimenting with from the Firefly up to basically Foundry Street where the bike lanes stop. We could do protected bike lanes. And that makes it, or we could even go down to Willow Street where the Greenway is, but that would make it a little more affordable in terms of, if they come out to be pretty expensive, then we could say this accomplishes the entire project. This is in response to a fatal crash. And we could just identify some needs there. And then, we could also use them to create like a pedestrian island where right here, the turn lane would start a little further down. So then you have kind of a protected area in the center,
Yeah.
on both sides. So those are
Yeah.
just some of the ideas that we came up with, that we could do for this project. But I do agree. I think it would be good for Prince Avenue. I also am not sure what their timeline is on this project because we talked about doing the Prince Avenue protected lanes from Barber Street to Pulaski. But this would be done after the Barber Street infrastructure has been installed. So the goal would be the infrastructure is here on Barber, and then we do that, and then we can integrate it in with some more experimental stuff, maybe on Doherty. But we identified that as one of the weak points on the Barnett Shoals
Right.
project was it wasn't connecting to any bike infrastructure, and people were like, "Why would you do this?" And so.
And when do you anticipate the Barber Street infrastructure to be implemented?
We are still waiting for Mayor and Commission to approve the concept.
Okay.
And they are waiting on our consultants to put together various more advanced design for this fourth segment, which goes from Prince Avenue to, sorry, one second.
To Boulevard.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and they had, the mayor and commission have already had some discussion and sent it back to staff. Is that correct for refinement, I believe, or?
That was the implication. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know that I can't remember exactly the formal mechanism. I think they maybe just tabled it until further discussion, and in the meantime, we are coming to them with additional concepts and some ideas. So
Okay. Well, I think we have plenty of time to formulate our specific plan and to apply for funding from People for Bikes, or if I find other organizations,
And we can start up if I suspect that Barber Street is going to be a while. Then Prince Avenue is going to be a while. So we've got definitely, if we were to get those temporary, the Transline Industries ones that you pointed out, Daniel, it occurs to me those are actually on a hilly area. Those are going to work better than a cement, piece, which is inflexible, whereas this can kind of conform to the there's it goes straight up and then flat, and then it goes straight up and then it's flat.
yeah.
And then, so it would work better on that kind of situation. So we could try it out there and test it out there. And, I think that's a great option.
Okay.
awesome.
Maybe
Yeah,
is the next step you find out how much they cost or put in a quote or whatever.
yeah. So I'll get some quotes on that, and yeah, the other great thing about this just is that we could end up using these on the Prince Avenue segment. Because it's a temporary thing. So if it works really well in this location and we see, slower speeds, then we could actually install permanent infrastructure at this spot out of our safety funding. We could even go through GDOT, their safety funding mechanism, and then we could use these elsewhere. So the goal would be that we have more of this. A lot of people call it tactical urbanism. I think in the design world, they're moving away from that terminology because it sounds really aggressive. They're moving towards intermediary design, but all of it's the same thing, which is basically it's like a pilot project so that you're not spending, you know, $300,000-$400,000 on redoing a streetscape, only to find out that like everyone hates it and please put it back the way it was. Like we've had happen in the past with Chase Street and with Barnett Shoals. So Yeah, I think this is a great idea, and we could even include in that grant, basically we can get signage, we can, we can include all of that kind of, so we can develop a safety concept, right? I have kind of an illustrative version already. I can get a price point on that, and then from there, that'll give us the amount that we need, and you guys could go ahead and start working on some of the other parts of the grant.
Okay. And by you guys, it's me, right? I don't want to
Right.
commit anybody else on screen to
I'm
additional
happy to
work.
help. I'm happy to help and, any way you need it, whether it's,
Thank you.
doing drafts or, writing a section or whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah, and any data, like it's helpful just to get if you have a group of people from different backgrounds, and it can help. We can supply you with data or information that you need for the grant. So yeah, it sounds great. And I think Stephen was fine with it as well. So
Okay.
I mean, as I expressed at the Prince Avenue Corridor Committee meeting, it makes it too easy to tear out is my worry. And you'll just have a bunch of people who, reflexively object to the change and, I don't know, that's my worry. I'll
Yeah.
say it again.
Well, and there might actually get some more. Another option is it might get some more publicity, because remember when the crossings were changed at the Daily some time ago, the pedestrian crossings, and they put flags over there.
Mhm.
And our artistic community took it upon themselves to make videos and image memes on how to cross Prince Avenue, and got a great deal of publicity out of it, so.
Yeah. So anyway, good. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much for your consideration. I
Hey, I
will.
put a link in, just before you go, I put a link in the chat to the Zikla Zipper Zero cycle lanes that Daniel showed us.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. And thank you for allowing me to present to you. I will mute and stop my video, but I would like to listen to whatever else the grant committee has going on, and perhaps there might be other opportunities for me to assist in the future
Great.
if so be. All right.
absolutely.
Thanks
Yep.
again.
All right, thank you. And next item on the agenda was the opportunities with GDOT for getting a blinky flashy, which apparently we did not get through America Walks, but I still haven't got any official notification, which is a bit odd, but
Yeah.
whatever.
And when you go to the website, it still is the original website of, hey, we're giving this grant away. There's no link to any update. So
Yeah.
yeah, I I did add in there was the AARP 2022 challenge grant. Had you looked at that one yet?
Yeah, I looked at that. I'm sorry, I forgot to add that to the agenda. I looked at it and it was trying to remember the amount that it was up to. I think the average, they didn't specify an amount, but they give away like $9 million to 800 projects, and it ended up being about $11,000 was the average grant. And the kind of things that they paid for were, not surprisingly, things that encourage mobility, active mobility among older populations. And so park benches was one thing that was seen quite popular. Bike lane infrastructure, I think there were 17 projects. I think they gave away 600 benches. And then trying to think about, education programs, things like that were also funded. So I kind of was thinking about the first thing that popped into my head, which isn't necessarily the best thing, was benches along the new sections of the Greenway Trail and the Firefly that don't currently have benches. Because, for someone who's older, it is nice to be able to, walk half a mile and then have a seat, maybe rest a little bit. That might encourage, facilitate people who are older or, have arthritis or other disabilities to be able to take more advantage of it.
Or small children.
And kids, yeah. And it's also an opportunity. I was also thinking about this. So my wife and I donated a bench in the, it's basically a nature preserve that we've created up in Michigan, and with another family, and we've donated benches, and they're kind of a naming opportunity. You know, you can put a little plaque on in memory of, and so that's a way to also leverage their funding. So if they give us $10,000, we can buy 20 benches if we get another $10,000 from community members who want to memorialize a family member or something like that. But that's one idea. I want to hear what you guys think about, other options for that. Daniel, do you have that document handy?
Yeah, I am
PDF, I think.
I am working. Okay, yeah. I just found the email, so
Yeah, thanks.
let's see, open. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if I can. My computer always runs a little slower when I'm doing WebEx for some reason. Okay. Right. So this is the promotional flyer. It looks like
Wasn't there another one,
applications
that
are.
they showed
Yeah,
what they?
there's let me okay. I
Yeah,
thought I
because
had opened all of
Byron's
them,
focus,
but
this might be a different one
let's see.
you sent me.
Where did it go?
Here, let me,
Here. Okay. All right. So this is the promotional flyer. This is the call, and then here's another. This final about challenge
yeah,
flyer.
that's the one that showed what they had done.
Okay.
Well, no, this is,
There it is.
yeah, right, exactly. So if you scroll down, you can see what they funded, or scroll up, yeah.
So, oof, man. Okay. So we got crosswalk improvement, bike mobility lanes, community gardens, benches, bike racks. I know if it's benches like along the greenway, that would go through leisure services. So it
What are some
doesn't
other
mean
ideas though? Yeah.
what's that?
What are some other ideas though, then?
So I was thinking we've discussed those crosswalk indicators that verbally tell you when it's safe to cross rather than just beeping, because those with visual impairments, if you're at a crosswalk and there's two directions and it's not telling you which direction to go, you don't know if you're safe or not to cross. So we could do some of that where it says like safe to cross West Broad Street or something like that. And we could pick some locations downtown that are heavily used and would have a lot of visibility in general. We could do bike racks. I know I've heard a lot of complaints about lack of bike racks. Bike fix-it stations and benches are very popular to put into some of the leisure services projects. So we could still do those projects. It would just be, to work with leisure services to make sure that we're doing it correctly.
Is there an ordinance that requires bike racks for new construction of a certain size?
I believe there is, but I ideally, I was actually looking at this last week because we were talking about the policy stuff. I think it could be increased. one of the ordinances that we have, I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, it's basically like for certain size developments of a certain type, they are required to do like a certain percentage of bike racks for,
Okay.
and as part of the LEED neighborhood development accreditation that I went through, LEED actually has a bunch of calculations for like what's recommended. And I think it would be really cool if we adopted basically a LEED standard for our development, which is like if it's housing, it's 30 indoor bike storage for 30% of the tenants, and I think it's 2 or 4% of the peak visitors, which there's a calculation for that.
Mhm.
And then like for and then that bike rack like has to be within 75 feet of an entrance, like a main entrance.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of other things that are pretty cool, but
So of those things up there, James, Teresa, do you have any preferences for which direction to go?
I was just sort of on my other computer, I was looking through the project types, and Daniel, you had mentioned a grant applying to some educational type projects. Or did I mishear you?
uh I think Mark had mentioned
I thought that that was one
education.
of the things they funded, and I don't actually see that listed as one of the
Yeah. Because
items.
I was thinking, that.
Yeah, I would really, I think what they're looking for is sort of infrastructure type stuff based on this. It
Okay.
includes art, public art.
Yeah. I mean, I think all
Oh,
this
here we
is,
go. I'm sorry, transportation access and safety trainings. It does say that, 100 in the far left, 138.
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I think, bike racks is an awesome idea, and park benches, I mean, anything like that increases people's ability and desire to use
Mhm.
the
So
infrastructure.
what about along the Firefly? Is that go through TPW?
No, that's all leisure services.
That's also, okay.
Anything within the public right of way is
Gotcha.
AC is well, okay.
Yeah,
Anything within the public right of way except for some of our trails is
okay,
transportation.
okay. Crosswalks, I mean, you could use it to get those, more of those temporary bike barriers. And between this and the other grant, you could ask for 10,000 from each.
Mhm.
You got super lucky, and that would reduce the work of the writing the grant because you'd be getting, you'd basically submit the same
Mm.
grant to two different places.
Do we know if they are doing like a focus on equity with this grant?
There is
Because
a category for equity in there.
Yeah, it does. If you scroll all the way down under grant funding categories, the projects
gotcha,
are funded in these categories.
Diversity and
Focus on DEI.
inclusion.
Yeah, they have DEI there.
got
Um,
it.
so
So
transportation, the good thing is it's probably transportation would be the primary project category, but you could speak to DEI, in the
yeah,
application.
yeah, it looks like okay. So projects are funded in these. Got it.
Yeah, so they'll make you pick a category, I bet, but then you can also always, talk about that as part of the application.
We could always focus on that the whole thing that kind of started our conversation around the ADA proposal, which was telephone poles and sidewalks. um, Depending on the type of pole, it could be very expensive, but um, I know that like I could get some approximate prices. If this is only 22,000, is that what we said?
I think it looks more like 11,000, but I think
11.
they,
Okay.
um,
Would it
45% of
match?
grantees that say it leverage, they want to see leveraging.
Okay.
Our design efforts catalyze city-led fundraising with 100,000 coming from capital improvement project. So they say about half of the grantees help them leverage additional funds. So that would be a plus, I would think. And they wanted, awareness, engagement, new relationships. I'd worry that just removing telephone poles from a sidewalk may not be
Yeah, that's
sexy
fine.
enough for me. There's nothing, it's sort of like, there's nothing there when you're done, right? There's nothing that
Right.
you can do to, it's just, except a better
Put up a,
sidewalk,
put
which
up
is
a sign that says, this is where there used to be a utility pole in the
thanks to the
sidewalk, but
AARP. Yeah.
because we got an AARP grant, it's no longer here.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing about that, is that it's not a visible improvement, and they may be more drawn to things that are visible and
Yeah,
identifiable.
they're all about membership. Let me tell you, I used to work for them
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
back in the day.
Believe it or not, I'm a member. Nobody believes that.
I won't join because I used to work for them.
You want to make my wife mad? Send her AARP stuff. Okay.
Um,
Enough of that. So, what's the next step? Should we find out? We will be finding out how much those temporary lane structures are. Should we find out how many bike racks and how many benches you could buy with, 20,000 total funding, 10,000 from them, 10,000 from the city, something like that?
yeah, well, I know that bike racks are benches are, I believe, either $1,200 or $1,600 each. So
Yeah, I think the one we bought was around 1,200 for the Nature Conservancy, so it was in that neighborhood.
so that would be a good question for Todd Miller at our general meeting next week. Maybe during the update, we could ask him
Yeah,
the prices on those, and if he has prices on bike racks. Um, I think there's like a lot of options here. But
yeah,
we could do focus on bike or pedestrian or both. Some of these things are for both. Um, yeah, I think getting some in fixed stations too, those could be something that we look into. I do know that as part of a CDBG grant, Alex Bond got like partial funding from CDBG for some accessibility improvements, mid-block crossings, maybe fix-it stations, those kind of things within leisure services. So because that has existing funding, we could leverage those funds to do some of these improvements. So that'll stretch that money out a little further. And because it's CDBG, I mean the funding is only for certain areas of Athens that are would score high on the diversity, equity, and inclusion. So
CDBG.
community development block grants.
Thank you.
looks like the deadline for this is March 22nd, so,
Yeah.
and it just opened up recently. Yeah, there says March 22nd. So probably we have to move maybe first on this one if we're gonna prioritize anything, because we don't really know the deadline for the, People for Bikes, project.
Well, and
Um,
Peter will be running on that one, and so
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
could do the majority of work. Peter, do you have any ideas on some infrastructure items or something we could do?
He might not be there.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Um,
When was People for Bikes due?
There was no due date. They hadn't posted it. It looked like they were revising their policies, because that's when I kind of reading between the lines. It looked like they were updating their policies, and
Letter
they
of
could.
intent was part of it, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, let's look at some options. I mean, we have a bunch of different like corridor funds too that we could use. I mean, ultimately, the key here is to find something that we already have funds for and try to stretch it with this kind of thing. So, um,
yeah.
yeah.
James, do you have any thoughts on this?
My only thought, when you guys were talking about locations, since this is AARP, I was thinking about the Council on Aging,
Mhm.
and its proximity to the Pulaski Heights Greenway Trail. And then also the fact that Denny Towers is right up the street from that. I was wondering about connectivity between Denny Towers and that Pulaski Heights trail, which seems like it doesn't have, I was just street viewing it just now, and doesn't
I
seem like
walked
it
it.
has a lot of
I walked it 2 days
connectivity
ago, so
there.
we're keeping an eye on it. You know, you look at our backyard and we see the Council on Aging and we see the Bethel Hills redevelopment going on. And I just walked past it. There's a sidewalk on the, oh God, what direction now? The east side of the road heading
Right.
up the hill. It's partially obstructed now because of the construction. And then as you get up to the top of the hill by Denny Towers, there's a sidewalk on both sides. But there's no
Right.
sidewalk on the west side, the Denny Towers side,
Hmm.
down to the Council on Aging. So, you know, that
Right.
would be a great place to, create a way for people to walk down there.
And there's no crosswalk between where the sidewalk ends on the west side to get over to the east side sidewalk to go down to the Greenway.
Correct, correct. And that would be a good natural place to put sort of a protected crosswalk or raised
Mhm.
crosswalk. Cars often go quite fast down Hoyt. I've noticed they really, it's a
Really.
pretty steep downhill, so they go down Hoyt
Mhm.
toward Council on Aging pretty fast.
Mhm.
Usually it's less of an issue going uphill
Right.
toward town. But yeah,
And with that, we could do some speed tables maybe, to to cut down on, to basically slow speeds and put in, I don't know. I mean, that's not
Well,
really
I
like
think, I
pedestrian
think having
infrastructure.
a speed table on Hoy going downhill and then a speed table like crosswalk by the Council on Aging would be
Hmm.
quite nice. And
Yeah, yeah.
I really like that idea of tying it into the Council on Aging and existing infrastructure there.
Um,
Great idea.
so now,
And Denny Towers
yeah,
would add an element of equity in there too,
Where's
Yeah.
since
Denny?
that's a public
So
housing
Denny's at the
senior
bottom of the
living.
screen.
The bottom of the screen. Okay.
That's senior living for public housing.
Yeah.
now
And
the Greenway Network plan shows some connectivity. Let's see. There it is. So this is our existing trail, in the bold, and then it kind of goes into the Council on Aging, and then it goes down to a dead end here. So that could come up and along the street to get to Denny Towers. That's within the Greenway Network plan.
yeah,
Now, does anyone have the North Avenue redevelopment plans?
I was looking at them the other day because I was curious what they were doing. They've built the retention pond, which is basically directly across the street from the Council on Aging. And it
Or
looks like they're about to start construction on the upper level. They've sort of created two levels. There used to be a slope and now they've sort of created two levels, is what it looks like, with the lower level being the retention pond and the upper level is going to have new housing. Now they're going to be changing the grid here. So this will become more of a grid-like, structure back in here where you currently have this Hickman Drive. I think that's going to end up looking more grid-like, is what I remember from there.
let me, I'm gonna see if I can find it. Is it, I guess it would be online, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yep, there you go.
North Athens Downtown Development Project.
That's it, yep.
Okay, so, um, let's see, India, Athens planning.
They have a
That's,
meeting. It took me a little while to find it. I had to go to it was actually a different site. It was more of an article.
um, interesting.
Yeah, because it's a public-private partnership, I think, if I remember correctly.
Um, I think Yeah. Is that JHP Architecture and Urban Design? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, this was at the community meeting I went to about a year ago, 2 years ago now.
Okay. So it might have some updates since then, but
Yeah,
um,
definitely. I
I'm
think if you go
hoping.
a little further, yeah, they'll get into it. I seem to remember it.
You know what? I'm gonna go to our table of contents. Redevelopment Master Plan, page 92. Whoops. Okay. Um, so in their master plan, they do show a connection down to that lot.
Right.
And I assume this would also connect at our current trailhead here.
Yeah.
And I believe this might have been widened to be a multi-use path, but I don't think they're going to actually build that out as part of this first round of construction. I believe
Correct.
they're going with the east-west connection
Hmm.
to College Avenue with the multi-use path. Um, but I haven't seen that yet.
Right. But yeah, you
Um,
can see in the bottom left corner, Denny Tower,
yeah.
and right there, yeah. So, and you can see the retention pond, that's the little blue crescent up there. They built that. That's actually being landscaped now. And then you can see how there's more of a grid instead of Hoyt Street kind of swooping down and curving to the left and then to the right. Or not Hoyt, but whatever it is, the next street over. Um,
Madison
Uh,
can't quite read.
Avenue.
Lumpkin, it's Lumpkin actually, I think. It says Lumpkin?
Oh, well, it looks like they're extending Lumpkin
Right.
Street.
They're extending
Oh, yeah.
Lumpkin across
Okay.
from 40 into the grid there and creating a little
Interesting.
grid.
So
And
right
they're also
now,
creating hopefully protected crosswalks
oh
across
yeah.
College.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
right now Lumpkin kind of wraps around to Hull, and
yeah,
so they
yeah,
would put it straight in.
yes,
Wild.
exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it's really going to be nice. It'll really feel
Well,
like a natural extension of downtown, I think. I mean, I think it's,
Yeah.
um, going to be a good thing.
yeah.
Laura was just saying, I think it'll help our property value. It can't hurt. So anyway, so,
Yeah.
okay,
I'm not
that's
I'm not
another,
sure what depending on the timeline for this grant, um, something like that might be. I'm not, if we'd have to time it if we're doing like crosswalks and
mhm.
added amenities there. I'm not sure what the timeline is on this redevelopment, but
Well, they
that's a
are
good
moving ahead
idea.
pretty quickly. I mean, it's underway and there's a lot of activity there every day. I mean, I
Hmm.
wouldn't be surprised to see construction commencing within a month
Oh,
or
wow.
sooner. They're doing site preparation right now.
Huh.
Now, I don't know their schedule, but it certainly looks like they're full on moving ahead.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it enough money? What's it enough money to do? Would it be enough? It might be enough for an RFID or whatever those are called, blinky flashy at the Council on
Yeah.
Aging. It might be enough for
RFB.
that plus a speed table, you know. It wouldn't be enough for a sidewalk. It might be enough for
Yeah.
design of that
Yeah.
way connection.
It would be good if we had a sort of catalog of what some of these things cost, so we could come up with a desired amount of money and then see if there's a grant that would help us get that funding.
Mhm. That would be nice.
Sometimes the prices can change a lot, so usually um, usually it kind of figure out what we want, the scope, and then we can get some prices on stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's been discussion in the past before me, I think, about a speed management toolkit,
Mhm.
which would would be basically like, all right, here are some of the tools we can use for reducing speeds on, certain types of roads.
Mhm.
So Tallahassee, you know, road, for instance, in that road safety audit, there are 4 different stretches, kind of approaching cross streets like Vaughn Road, Chad's Walk, Lavender, where we observed a lot of pretty high speed. And while they are probably doing that on the entire corridor, at those intersections that are not signalized, that's where it really gets a lot more dangerous because that's your conflict point. So, all that to say that like creating that toolkit of like here are the tools you can use. I would imagine some of those elements would be these pedestrian and traffic calming features that could be covered by a grant like this, and we could possibly have some prices, but
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get too detailed
yeah.
because as you said, prices change, but it'd be kind of nice to like, or not even, if you don't even price them out so much, just like say, so here are the elements or the components of a project
Hmm.
that could, address these types of problems.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a central repository of infrastructure costs.
Yeah, or just like a list of things that you can put together, to create a little project. So if you have a T-bone intersection, what can you do there? If you have a full intersection or,
Mhm.
one-way streets going across each other. I mean, all kinds of different scenarios, just what are the
I
kinds
think
of
that
things
would
that we can,
absolutely be outlined in that speed management. It's like in this scenario, here are the things that we can do.
right. I would love that. That would be awesome.
Well, I'm about to bring it to mayor and commission, and
You
we
go,
will
Daniel.
most likely, I feel like they're probably going to ask us to have the Athens in Motion Commission work on it. So,
Be careful
careful
what
what
you
you wish
wish
for.
for. You might get it, is what you're telling me.
Yep.
Okay.
I think something this would a simple thing would be benches and fixed stations or bike racks in
Right.
leisure
And
services
those are
property.
convenience things and amenities. But I mean, like in situations where you have hazards for pedestrians and bicyclists, I mean, if there's some kind of like if we could just have a little kind of template for, how do we just put in place something that's going to improve safety? Because I feel like safety is such an urgent need these days. Everybody is just
Mhm.
driving like they want to kill everyone.
Yep.
So, do we need these costs before we choose something?
I can get some costs for us. I think it would help to know, kind of narrow it down and say, here's what we're thinking.
Yes.
So I would say option 1 would be benches, bike racks, fix-it stations in a park. Do you have one in mind? Or we could just get leisure services to say like, hey, y'all have this project um, for Firefly Trail,
Mm-hmm.
and we could piggyback off of that. That might be.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get info from Alex on that before our general meeting.
Yeah, because on the initial part of the Firefly Trail, there's at least one, I think maybe two benches along that initial 1 mile stretch, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
I think that's right.
So they may have that in planned for future and so. So that's okay, that's one. And then another one would be a, some sort of a high visibility crossing by the Council on Aging. Gunner's coming in because he likes to watch soccer, ball bouncing around. It's all good. Um, so it could be, and then maybe combined with a speed table on Hoyt Street. Um, I don't know how much that would be, or maybe, and maybe some, uh, yeah, and that could be part of it. And then the other enhancement for the Council on Aging might be funds for, design of a trail connection up into Denny Tower.
Yeah.
Um, And then another one would be just simply buying a bunch of those bike barrier separator type thingies, which could be used for a variety of projects, but we could highlight projects where it might benefit.
Would that be for AARP or the People for Bikes?
I would think for either, actually.
Okay.
Seems pretty interchangeable in terms of, I mean, I like the Council on Aging, obviously, focus would be, I think, a great idea for the ARP.
I think AARP would like
Mhm.
that.
You would,
Yeah.
it's,
And one other thing, we could, so the Clayton Street development that's currently underway, I had gotten an email recently from Diana with the number of bike racks that are in that plan. So yeah, here we go.
I'm sorry for having the TV on in the background, but it's Paramount Plus and I can't pause it, so it has to just run.
Oh, you're good, you're good. 15 bike racks in that master plan.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna paste all the locations into chat.
Yeah.
There, yeah. And then I'm gonna share a screen of the plan, but it's not super visual. I'm hoping to get this kind of cleaned up a little bit before our meeting so that it's easier to understand. So, this is set up with basically north facing up. So, Lumpkin Street on the left, Thomas Street on the right. Within this segment, we've got 15 bike lanes.
Like racks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bike racks. And
So how does
so,
it relate to this? Is that something you still need funding for, or what's the?
well, these are paid for. So the way that this relates is if we felt like we needed more bike racks in this area,
Mhm.
um,
Okay.
so that might be a question for general.
Yeah.
We could also look at other places in downtown. If we got 15 racks coming in here,
Mhm.
12, 13, 14.
Another thing for the Council on Aging, thinking about
Yeah.
ARP, since that's sort of the immediate goal here, then the shortest deadline would be to have a couple of benches along the existing Greenway Trail, which currently, I believe, does not have any, the one going up to Pulaski Ice Barbecue. I don't believe
Those
there's
are
any.
the granite tombstone benches that we have. They're giant, huge granite things.
Never seen them. Well, I'm sure I've seen them, but I didn't observe them.
Yeah, we wanted them to blend in
Where
so
are they?
that
Blending a lot,
it wasn't.
apparently. Where are
We
they? Are they down by the Council on Aging itself?
I'm pulling it up right
There is
now.
some big blocky thing up near Pulaski Heights Barbecue, I think, if I remember right.
Share. All right, so we've got 2 down here at the bottom. We've got 4 here. 1 bench.
Okay, okay.
I
Okay,
think,
so
yep,
anyway, never mind, right? Is that the
there,
answer? Never mind.
there. Yeah, we've
Okay.
got, they're very
I feel like
often.
we're running way over. I haven't eaten lunch yet, and I'm sorry, but
No worries. Yeah.
I'd
It
like to
might be, it
focus on
might be
something.
that these are not as accessible though. I mean, they're just big granite slabs. So if you're in a wheelchair, how hard is it to get into that? So maybe that's something worth looking at is do we need more benches?
I've never even noticed them, and I've never thought about sitting on them, and I walk by there all the time, so it's kind
Yeah.
of maybe
Good
they're
to
a little
know.
too camouflage.
All right. Um,
Yeah.
so next on our agenda, are you ready to move on to the next one? Oh,
Definitely. I really got to get out of here soon. I'm
yeah.
starving.
So
Haven't had
the
lunch
last
yet.
thing is just I wanted to mention that through GDOT safety program, we can basically apply for things like the RRFBs. So we just need to like provide justification and locations. And so if that is something where we want to, I think I've already mentioned talking with GDOT with the other project, CDBG money that we had tried to leverage with the previous grant for RRFBs. So, but we could also, like, that's for safety things specifically. So those are road safety items. So just something to consider. I
Do
had
they have a maximum
mentioned,
budget or anything?
uh, I, it's not so much like a grant situation. It's more like, what do you have? What do y'all need? And then they decide if they want to spend their money on it. So
Okay.
RFBs run about, I think, 6 grand um, a pair. So they'll cover the cost of materials and the RFB. So you got the thermo, signage, and that. So I'd like to get together a full comprehensive list of, like, here's where we need mid-block crossings, and then start working through those with traffic engineering. Maybe there's a process we can set up, or we can start off with just talking with Athens in Motion, but
Mhm.
if y'all are identifying locations where you notice a high amount of pedestrian crossing at a mid-block, or maybe a mid-block crossing that's existing that needs to be upgraded, that
Mhm.
those could be good candidates for these types of things.
And I
Is
just
GDOT ever
volunteer
gonna,
the entirety of Atlanta Highway because people cross all over.
You're
is
And
not going to
GDOT,
get
it's scary.
yeah,
an
you're not gonna,
Yeah.
RRFA for Atlanta Highway.
Yeah, just every 10 feet.
okay, so, is GDOT gonna ever allow an RFP on millage? Down near the, like by University or
Oh,
Hampton?
was that the one you had mentioned? I think
Yeah,
that
because I know
came up
Allison Wright, one of our commissioners, Allison Wright, has worked on that or has advocated for that.
that one, I believe, was not accepted. Let me figure out. Let me figure
Because
out the.
GDOT's evolving and they're thinking about these sorts of things. It would be a great, because there's really no crossing of millage for quite a long distance. And, it is a heavily walked corridor.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um,
So if folks want to cross to the pharmacy, they want to go to the bike shop or anything like that, they'd have to go all the way down to Lumpkin to the 5 Points.
Yeah. Yeah.
So something by University would be good, or something near the,
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the pharmacy, I'm blocking on it now, but,
Hodgson's.
Hodgson's Pharmacy, yeah. And possibly with a refuge, or anyway, that just occurred to me as an area that could benefit from improvement, and where there's been attempts previously.
so okay, so we okay. So here's what I have for that mid-block crossing at Hampton.
Mhm.
Hampton.
We've
Okay.
actually requested a mid-block there last year. GDOT denied that request.
Hmm.
And
A year ago, yeah.
yeah, um, so, and I think it also depends on, like, the group that it goes through. So because that's been denied, we could look at other locations, or I could bring it up in my next meeting with Sam Harris, but
Mhm.
to see if there are some locations that would be more warranted, or fit better.
Acceptable would be the word
Yeah.
for them, maybe. Okay. Okay, so for North Avenue, you're planning to resubmit for the Raise grant, is that right?
Yes. So we had our debrief, and we scored in, like, the top 30% of projects. We came highly recommended, so only 30% of projects came highly recommended. Essentially what they do is uh, they have multiple filters, if you will. They run through all the different kind of categories, and then you get points based on that. So we scored really high, but then when it came to the benefit cost ratio analysis, we had calculated 1.2, which that's just the ratio of
Mhm.
benefit to cost, uh, and that's really good. You want a 1. I think that's like what they require basically. They reran the numbers, that's standard practice, is basically they always rerun the analysis, and they used their own data instead of the data we used, and that brought our BCR down to 0.6.
Okay.
And that kicked us out. So what that means is we've got a really good project, and we need to focus on justifying our data sources in
Mhm.
that BCR, as well as there are some things that don't get factored into the BCR. There's not a direct financial benefit, so the impact it has on lower income, you know, areas, the percentages of people without an access to cars, like those, there is benefit, but it doesn't have a dollar amount that you can really capture, if that makes sense.
Daniel, do you now understand what their criteria are in that, so that, we can, if our, if our application didn't have the data to support a better BCR, is there a way that we could look for different numbers in different ways to increase it?
Oh yeah, no, I'm very confident. Like originally I was thinking we should do 3 capital project submissions this year, one for North Avenue, but then go ahead and pick 2 more that so that we could just get as many applications out there as we could. After our meeting, I'm pretty confident that we can knock on wood, get the raise grant this year for North Avenue, and rather than putting in 3 capital, we just do 1 capital submission for raise grant, no alternate. We actually are able to expand the scope a little bit because GDOT has committed to replacing the bridge over the loop. And so that will give us the connectivity across there that the original pedestrian bridge would have done. So now we can cut out the cost of that pedestrian bridge, and we can use that to do more connectivity into neighborhoods, or so go a little off the corridor, which that would also affect the BCR.
Okay.
There's a greenway project that comes up and plugs really nearby. We could actually connect to that, and now you've got a connection straight over to Trail Creek Park, or Virginia Walker Park, excuse me.
Is there
That's
anything you
awesome.
need from us right now in terms of that, or just sort of a general okay on that plan?
For North Avenue, no, but what I wanted to do is we still can put in 3 applications, and they're giving away like last year they allocated $10 million to go towards planning grants. This year they're allocating $75 million to go towards planning grants. So I want to get in 2 planning grant submissions, one for, I'm thinking, Atlanta Highway, and one for Lexington. Um, and that would be, it has a $1 million minimum, or it's a $5 million minimum grant application. Um, and so that would basically do a whole corridor wide planning, and I need
Okay.
to look into it more to see what all that can pay for. But the idea would be, if we have a corridor that's gone through the raise planning process through USDOT, then it makes it even maybe higher likelihood of it getting funded through a future raise grant. And we have a lot of the corridor funds coming up, the $9 million on the T-Splosh referendum, that we could potentially use to leverage that.
Okay. I
What are y'all's thoughts?
think that makes sense to me. I don't know.
Okay. We'll get more information together. Right now, there's not really anything we need, but I think we could probably use your help with getting together some of those applications. We are working with a consultant to do this as well. So if you think it would be easier to just get in on our consultant meetings, I can check with Stephen to see if that can be done. And then we're not doing the phone game.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fine. I think we can do that.
And,
All right. So, anything else?
Um, I don't
Hesitant to
have
say
anything
that.
to talk about with data. Um,
Okay.
Working on it. It-
All right. That's
it's
fine. That's good.
yeah. So food's more important.
Hey, sorry, my stomach's digesting itself right now. I
Mine
didn't
too.
achieve this physique by skipping meals.
Same here.
All right. Okay, good. So, I will, do we want to set up a next meeting? We should probably think about something in terms of scheduling, in terms of the AARP grant. And I think that's the most immediate concern is what do we do for that? So Daniel, if you can get us some rough cost estimates so we can kind of get a sense of what's possible. And
Yeah.
then send that around to this group and then maybe plan another meeting in early March at the latest so we can be prepared to submit.
Yeah, should we have one more meeting after like next week or the week after?
Yeah,
To try to get that.
how about the week of the 28th, February 28th is, and so it is Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I have a board meeting Wednesday at 2 o'clock for Lucas's fund, but I could do 1 o'clock or really pretty much any other time on Wednesday, the 2nd after 10:30.
I could do that. Yeah.
I could
You
do it.
want to just 1 o'clock?
Yeah, no,
Or
how about, would 11 be okay? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. 11's okay.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll send around an invite, or you'll send around an invite.
yeah, I'm getting that together right now so that I don't forget.
Good, thank you. And okay. Upwood Heating. Uh-oh, that's our heating and cooling people in Onekama. I gotta go, okay? Sorry.
Yeah. All
Bye.
right, thanks guys.
Bye.
Bye.